The Galactic Assembly's Grand Arena was a marvel of xeno-engineering. A floating bowl of dark obsidian and silver light, it sat in the neutral void between star systems, capable of generating any environment imaginable. Every 60 standard cycles, the assembly hosted the exhibition of apex predation. It was a tradition older than most spacefaring civilizations. Each member species sent a champion, their world's ultimate hunter, to prove the ferocity and resilience of their homeworld. The winner's species gained prestige, trade concessions, and a permanent seat on the Security Council for the next cycle. This year, 43 species had gathered. The air thrummed with alien scents, clicks, and subsonic roars. Enormous viewing galleries wrapped around the arena floor, packed with diplomats, warriors, and scientists. The rules were simple. Each hunter would be released into a simulated environment, a replica of a neutral, hostile world called Carax 4, known for its razor jungles and magma vents. The hunters would be tracked, monitored, and rated on 3 things: kill count, survival time, and the sheer terror their presence inspired. The species with the highest aggregate score, 1. The mood among the delegates was tense and proud. One by one, they had presented their hunters. The Krell Dominion, a reptilian empire with scales like battle armor, unleashed a maw worm. 80 meters long, it could burrow through solid rock at 60 kilometers per hour. Its digestive acids melted steel. When it roared, the viewing gallery shook. The Krell ambassador, a scarred creature named Vex, hissed with satisfaction. On our world, there is no creature above or below the soil that dares move when the maw worm hunts. We call it the World Ender for a reason. Next came the Silicoid Hive. They presented no single beast, but a swarm of crystal ravagers. Each was the size of a human fist, but together, they moved as one mind. They could strip a carbon-based lifeform to bare atoms in 17 seconds. Their ambassador, a being of fractured quartz, pulsed a cold light. We do not hunt. We consume. Biology is temporary. The swarm is forever. The Avari hegemony, a species of feathered, 6-limbed predators, brought the storm kite. It was a flying nightmare. Its wings generated localized lightning strikes. Its shriek could shatter bones from a kilometer away. The Avari matriarch preened. The storm kite does not chase. The sky itself attacks for it. Species after species presented their horrors. The aquatic thalassians sent a leviathan eel that generated crushing pressure waves. The burrowing myrmidites sent a queen antlion that created sinkholes the size of stadiums. The ethereal vapors sent a phase shifter, a creature that existed between dimensions. Appearing only as a shimmer of heat before its prey's neck snapped, each presentation was met with gasps, shudders, or respectful nods. The arena's hazard meters spiked every time. The Galactic Assembly's record for combined kill count in a single exhibition was held by the now extinct Vor-X Empire, with a creature called the Sundrake that had incinerated 17 simulated biomes before collapsing a star. No one had come close since. Then it was humanity's turn. Humanity was a newcomer to the assembly. They had achieved faster-than-light travel only 200 cycles ago. Their delegation was small, dressed in unassuming gray suits, and led by a woman named Ambassador Aelina Vance. She had kind eyes and calloused hands. The other species whispered about humans. They called them the persistent apes or the gravity well orphans because their homeworld had a crushing 9.8 meters per second squared gravity and a death world-level seismic activity. But humans had survived. They had thrived. And now they were here to show their ultimate hunter, the Arena Master. A massive, crustacean-like Xylos named Commander Tor turned his multifaceted eyes toward the human delegation. Species, human, designation, Terra. Present your champion. Ambassador Vance stood up. She was calm. She walked to the release podium and pressed a button. A small, cylindrical transport capsule hummed into the arena's receiving bay. The capsule door slid open with a soft hiss, and out walked a cat dot. It was small. Very small. It had orange fur, a white chest, and for white paws. Its tail flicked lazily. It yawned, showing tiny, needle-like teeth. Then it sat down, wrapped its tail around its feet, and began to clean its left paw with absolute indifference. The arena fell silent. Then, the laughter began. The Krell ambassador Vex let out a guttural, grinding hiss that translated as hysterical laughter. A furry vermin. You brought a nest thief to the Apex exhibition? The Avari matriarch's feathers ruffled in amusement. Does it hunt dust motes? Shall we provide a ball of string? The silicoid ambassador pulsed a mocking pattern. We will consume it in less than one of your heartbeats. This is insult. Commander Tur's antennae twitched. He looked at the human ambassador. Ambassador Vance, the rules require an apex predator. A creature at the absolute top of its food chain. This is a companion animal. A pet. You are aware of the danger to its life. Ambassador Vance did not smile. She did not apologize. She simply nodded. Commander Tor, with respect, you asked for our planet's ultimate hunter. We brought it. His name is Whiskers. He is a domestic short-hair cat, neutered, 7 years old, and he once killed a mouse in the pantry at the embassy. We request the exhibition begin. More laughter. But Commander Tor was old. He had seen many species bluff. He had seen overconfidence and underestimation destroy empires. He tapped his claws on the podium. Very well. The human champion Whiskers will be released into Zone 7 of the Carax for simulation. The other hunters are already active. Let the record show that the human delegation accepted full responsibility. The arena's lights dimmed. The holographic emitter soared. Zone 7 materialized, a tangled jungle of black, thorn-covered vines, with steam rising from nearby magma vents. The temperature was 50 degrees Celsius. The air was toxic with sulfur. The other 42 hunters were already in the zone, each dominating its own territory. The viewers leaned forward. Most expected the cat to die within seconds. Some pitied it. A few were disgusted by human cruelty. Ambassador Vance sat back down, folded her hands, and watched the hunt begin's individual segment. Whiskers stepped out of the transport capsule and onto the hot, ashy ground of Zone 7. The cat blinked. The sulfur smell made his nose wrinkle. He lifted one paw, shook it, and put it down again. Then he looked around with the slow, disinterested gaze of a creature who had never once in his life felt genuine fear. In the distance, the mawworm erupted from the earth. 80 meters of scale and fury. It scented the air. Its tiny, primitive brain registered a new protein source. It turned and began burrowing toward the cat at full speed, carving a trench through the black vines. Whiskers heard the vibration. His ears swiveled. He looked toward the oncoming destruction, then back toward the transport capsule. He sat down again. The mawworm was 300 meters away. 200. 100. The ground shook. The Krell ambassador was already gloating. Watch, the vermin will be dissolved before it can mew. 50 meters. The mawworm opened its mouth, revealing rings of acidic teeth. Whiskers yawned. Then, something extraordinary happened. The mawworm stopped. Its entire body went rigid. Its nostrils flared. It had caught a new scent. It was not the cat's scent. It was something deeper. Something that the mawworm's ancient, instinct-driven brain had not encountered in a million years of evolution on its homeworld. The scent of a creature that had no place in the natural order. A creature that killed not for hunger, not for territory, but for the sheer, incomprehensible joy of destruction. The mawworm began to tremble. It let out a sound that had never been recorded before, a high-pitched, whining keen. Then, with a speed that defied its size, the world-ender of Krell turned and burrowed back into the ground. It did not stop. It kept going deeper, faster, until the seismic sensors showed it had fled to the very edge of the simulation zone. The arena went quiet. The Krell ambassador's laughter died in his throat. That is not possible. Commander Tor checked the data. The mawworm's heart rate spiked to critical. Its fear hormones are off the scale. It is not returning. What did it sense? Ambassador Vance said nothing. She simply watched Whiskers, who had now decided that the ground was too hot, and had jumped onto a nearby rock. The swarm individual segment, the silicoid hive's ambassador, pulsed an angry light. A fluke. The reptile was weak. Observe the swarm. The crystal ravagers arrived like a glittering, angry cloud. Millions of tiny, razor-sharp bodies, each one a shard of living crystal. They moved as a single, screaming mind. Their purpose was absolute: reduce all organic matter to base components. They had never failed. On their homeworld, entire mountain ranges had been ground to dust. The swarm descended on Whiskers. The cat was still sitting on the rock, now grooming his shoulder. The first wave of ravagers reached him. And then, they stopped, not because of any weapon, not because of any shield. The swarm simply stopped, hovering to centimeters from the cat's fur. Their collective consciousness, which had consumed 100 biomes, suddenly encountered a problem. The cat's biosignature was wrong. It was not prey. It was not predator. It was something the swarm's crystalline mind could not categorize. The cat's fur carried bacteria, billions of them. The swarm's feeding mechanism worked by recognizing and dismantling known biological structures. But the bacteria on a domestic housecat came from a death world called Earth, a planet where microorganisms evolved to survive volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and the planet's own magnetic field reversals. The swarm's cutting edges touched a single bacterium, a common Staphylococcus from Vance's kitchen floor, and the bacterium cell wall did not dissolve. Instead, the bacterium released a toxin that the swarm's crystalline lattice had no defense against. The toxin spread through the swarm like fire through dry grass. In 3 seconds, 1,000,000 crystal ravagers turned from glittering killers into inert dust. The rest of the swarm recoiled. For the first time in its existence, the silicoid hive's collective mind experienced something it had no word for: terror. The swarm fled, scattering into the simulation's upper atmosphere. The silicoid ambassador went dark. Its quartz body cracked once, then went silent. Commander Ter's voice was quiet. The swarm disintegrated. Not by force, by contact. Ambassador Vance, what is on that creature? Vance finally allowed a small smile. Commander, on Earth, we call it being a house pet. Whiskers has never had a bath. He sleeps on a couch that has not been cleaned in 3 years. He eats processed food from a can. He is, by our standards, perfectly normal. Your swarm just encountered a single strain of Earth's household bacteria. We have millions. The Stormkite individual segment, the Avari matriarch, was no longer laughing. Her feathers lay flat. The swarm was fragile. The Stormkite is not. It does not touch its prey. It destroys from the sky. High above, the Stormkite circled. It was a creature of living electricity. Its wings generated static charges that built into lightning bolts. It had never been grounded. On Avari Prime, it ruled the upper atmosphere. Cities were built underground to avoid it. Now, it saw the small, orange creature on the rock. It did not need to descend. It simply flexed its wings. A lightning bolt, blue-white and angry, shot down toward Whiskers. The cat looked up. His pupils dilated. And then, in a motion that was almost lazy, he flicked his tail and jumped off the rock. The lightning struck the rock, turning it into molten slag. Whiskers landed on a patch of cooler ash, blinked, and began to clean his other paw. The Stormkite was confused. It had never missed. It flexed again. Another bolt. Whiskers walked 3 steps to the left. The bolt hit empty ground. Again. Each time, the cat moved just enough, not running, never running to let the lightning hit nothing. It was not speed. It was timing. A cat's reaction time is 70 milliseconds. A human's is 250. To the Stormkite, the cat seemed to be moving before the lightning was even fired. The Stormkite grew frustrated. It descended. It wanted to see its prey. It dropped through the sulfur clouds, its wings crackling. It got within 50 meters, 30, 10 dot, and then Whiskers did something no one expected. He looked directly at the Stormkite. He crouched, his hindquarters wiggling slightly. He made a sound. It was not a roar. It was not a growl. It was a chirp. A small, inquisitive chirp that domestic cats make when they see a bird outside a window. The Stormkite had never heard that sound. Its brain, wired for dominance and terror, could not process it. The chirp was not fear. It was not submission. It was her curiosity. And in the Stormkite's world, the only thing that showed curiosity toward a predator was something that had never learned to fear. Something that had never needed to. The Stormkite's wings stopped generating charge. Its lightning fizzled. It hovered, trembling, and then it did something no Avari had ever witnessed. It folded its wings and landed on the ground. It lowered its head. It whined. The cat walked over to the Stormkite, sniffed its beak once, then walked away. The Stormkite did not move. It stayed there, head down, like a scolded pet. The Avari matriarch's translator failed. She made a sound that might have been weeping. The Leviathan eel and the Queen Antlian individual segment. By now, the arena was in chaos. Delegates were screaming at their data screens. Commander Tor had called for a full diagnostic of the simulation. Everything was working perfectly. The hunters were not malfunctioning. They were simply afraid. 2 hunters remained who had not yet encountered the cat. The Thalassian Leviathan eel, which had claimed a deep magma pool as its territory, and the Myrmidite Queen Antlion, which had dug a pit the size of a village. They were on opposite ends of Zone 7. Whiskers, bored with the rock, began to walk. He walked slowly, with no apparent direction. He passed through the smoking remains of the Mawworm's trench. He stepped over the dust of the Crystal Ravagers. He ignored the crouching Stormkite. He walked for 10 minutes, and as he walked, the arena's sensors picked up something strange. The other 42 hunters, the ones not yet mentioned, were all moving away from him. Not attacking, not observing, fleeing, a herd of apex predators, each one a world-ending nightmare. Running from a 3-kilogram cat, the Leviathan eel sensed movement. It rose from its magma pool, its body glowing with internal heat. It was blind, but it could feel vibrations. It felt the cat's tiny footsteps. It opened its mouth, ready to release a pressure wave that would turn bone to powder. Whiskers stopped. He sat down. And then, he began to purr. The purr of a domestic cat is between 20 and 150 Hz, that frequency range. It turns out, is exactly the same range that causes the Leviathan eel's pressure-sensing organs to overload. The eel's entire nervous system was designed to detect threats through vibrations. A purr is not a threat. It is a constant, soothing, undetectable by evolution noise. The eel's brain received 1,000,000 signals at once. It could not parse them. It thrashed once, twice, and then went limp, sinking back into the magma pool in a self-induced coma. The Queen Antlion was last. She was the largest of all the hunters, a segmented horror that could collapse the ground beneath an army. She felt the cat approaching her pit. She waited. When Whiskers reached the edge, she triggered her trap. The ground gave way. Whiskers fell. For half a second, he was airborne. Then, in a move that humans call cat riding reflex, he twisted his spine, oriented himself, and landed on his feet on the Antlion's own head. He did not land hard. He landed like a feather. His claws tiny, retractable, unremarkable, dug into the chink between the Queen's head plates. The Queen Antlion shrieked. It was not a sound of aggression. It was a sound of absolute, primal panic. On her world, nothing had ever touched her head. Nothing had ever stood on her. She tried to shake the cat off. Whiskers held on. She tried to burrow. Whiskers dug his claws deeper. She tried to roll. Whiskers simply shifted his weight. For 5 minutes, the Queen Antlion thrashed and screamed. Then, exhausted, she stopped. She lay still. Whiskers let go, jumped to the ground, and walked away. The Queen Antlion did not move again. Her vital signs showed she was alive, but her brain activity was that of a creature in catatonic shock. The aftermath individual segment. The simulation ended. Zone 7 dissolved into light. The 43 hunters were retrieved, each one in various states of paralysis, flight, or catatonia. Whiskers sat in the middle of the empty arena floor, yawned, and began to wash his face. Commander Tur's voice echoed through the silent galleries. The final scores. Kill count, human champion, 0. Survival time, maximum. Terror rating. We do not have instruments capable of measuring the terror inflicted upon the other hunters. By unanimous decision of the remaining conscious delegates, the exhibition of apex predation is awarded to humanity. There was no applause. There was only stunned silence. The Krell ambassador was the first to speak. His voice was hoarse. Ambassador Vance, I demand to know. What is that creature? Truly, no pet, no simple animal. What weapon have you hidden inside it? Ambassador Vance stood up. She walked down to the arena floor, knelt beside Whiskers, and scratched him behind the ears. The cat leaned into her hand and purred louder. She looked up at the assembled delegates, at the warriors and scientists and emperors of 100 worlds. And she spoke in a voice that was gentle and final. You asked for our planet's ultimate hunter. And we brought you Whiskers. But you made one mistake. You thought ultimate meant biggest, strongest, most teeth or claws or lightning. That is not how Earth works. On our world, the ultimate hunter is not the one that fights. It is the one that has never needed to fight because everything else already knows to be afraid. She held up Whiskers' paw. The tiny claws extended. These claws cannot kill a mawworm. But the mawworm's instincts, honed for 100 million years, told it to flee. Why? Because on Earth, small predators with retractable claws and vertical pupils are called felids, and felids have a habit. They evolve. They adapt. They have survived every extinction event on our planet. the saber-toothed tiger, the cave lion, the domestic cat. They are not different species. They are the same hunter, wearing different coats. She stood up, holding whiskers. Your mawworm sensed a felid and ran. Your swarm touched a felid's bacteria and died. Your stormkite heard a felid's curiosity and surrendered. Your eel heard a felid's purr and shut down. Your antlion felt a felid's claws and broke. Not because whiskers is powerful, but because your hunters, for all their evolution, have never encountered something like him.